Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to explore an online calculator from the Government of Canada that will help you hone in on how much CPP and OAS you should be expecting in retirement. This calculator was recently shown to me by one of my clients. I found it super useful, and I love calculators like this that open up calculations that are usually a little bit more hidden and can bring you more information for your own financial plan. So let's get into it. All right, so here's the section of the Government of Canada website I was talking about. And again, I'm going to have it linked down below so you can go here and play with this yourself and find the value that really makes sense to you. There's 7 tabs along the top, all with different information that it's asking for. For today's video, I'm just going to highlight 2, the CPP or Canadian Pension Plan and the OAS calculators here, and we'll go through them one after the other. You have a series of questions that you're going to have to answer before the software actually gives you an estimate here, but you can see how you can kind of manipulate it after. So let's go through them quickly. So first, I'm going to pick Canadian Pension Plan. If QPP applies to you, obviously select QPP. We're going to say that we do not have the statement of contributions, because if you had that, you don't really need this calculator necessarily, although it's always nice to double check the math, but we're going to assume that you do not have your statement of calculations. And here it's asking, do you want to just use the average number? And we're going to say no. We're going to say no, please let me estimate based on my expected earnings as opposed to using that average. And then from there, you have all these different age categories. And so you kind of have to go back mentally to see how much you were actually making in this. And again, it's an average. This is not a very fine tooth tool to get you to the exact number. This is an average. This is a tool to get you very, very close. So if we look and assume in these early years, maybe you were averaging only $20,000 a year because you were going through university, and then you got maybe your first job around $40,000. And let's assume we took about a $5,000 increase on average all the way through until we got here where we're making over $68,500 and therefore maxing out our CPP contributions. From there, there's only 2 more questions, and it's, do you want to receive your CPP at 65 or all of these other options? And I'm just going to leave it at 65 for the video right now. And do you plan on working after you start receiving the CPP? I'm going to leave that at no as well. From here, we can jump up and we can see that the estimated CPP for this person starting at 65 would be $16,368, which is pretty good, far above average. And you'll also notice a couple things. One, it's flat. It's not going to be increasing. It's just assuming that that's going to stay at 0% inflation. We all know that that's not going to be the case, and CPP does track inflation, so that should be good. But here's one of the cool things that you can do. So let's say you're thinking about retiring around 60 and you want to see how that will impact your CPP. And if this was in fact the path you've been on through your career, you can simply drop this down to 0. So as of right now, we're at 16,000. Let's call that 400. And I drop that to 0. And it'll drop by $300, not quite $300 annually if you did not do any contributions in these last 4.5 years of your working career. So it's not a massive impact. So if we're comparing maybe a job that you're really tired of being in and it's only going to cost you $300 to your CPP, maybe it's worth it. Of course, I'm not taking into consideration a number of things in that statement, like surviving financially for those 4 years. But if it's a $300 impact, maybe that's worth it to you. But you can go in here and you can manipulate the numbers. And obviously, again, garbage in, garbage out. So the more accurate you can be, the better this will be. So from there, we can actually move over to the OAS tab here. And this one is way simpler to calculate because OAS is simpler to calculate. OAS is not linked to your income through your working years. The only time income gets factored into OAS is when you're retired and may or may not have to pay the clawback tax. And so essentially it boils down to 3 or 4 questions here. Do you expect to be living in Canada at age 65? Let's assume yes for this. Will you have lived in Canada for at least 40 years between age 18 and 65? If the answer here is yes, you're going to get full old age security. Again, we're not factoring in clawback if that's going to apply to you. But essentially, all this question boils down to as well is if the answer is no and you are living 20 years in Canada between those ages, it's essentially 20 divided by 40. The maximum number here is 50. And that's what you will get. So if we look at the early figure here, old age security from 65 to 74 would be 40, let's call that 300. But if I had been in Canada for all 40 years, it'll be 8,500, 8,600. So it'll be half as much if you've been there for 20. So that's a relatively easy way to calculate that. Either way, I found this to be an absolutely fantastic tool, really hones in on what you'd be looking for. You can put your date of birth in here and your retirement savings. You can get a lot of information here. Like I said, it's going to be linked down below. I hope you found this useful. I love tools like this that open up kind of the Pandora's box or the hidden calculations behind these things and make it a lot more accessible to you. So please go experiment with this for your situation and let me know how it goes. Until next time, keep planning.